Hey everybody, welcome back to Video So today we're going to get another fun and exciting episode for you guys this evening, and another unexpected one because over the weekend, Laurent or Sega Dreamcast Info released an alpha prototype of Space Channel 5 for Dreamcast. This is one of those games that's so synonymous with the system, pretty much everyone knows what it is, but getting such an early build of a game that's so well known is absolutely awesome, and Laurent has been preserving a lot of things. He is the one that released the Castlevania Dreamcast prototype a few years ago. Before we get too far involved, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell before we totally just disappear riding this weird train. And if you can't tell already, this game is filled with alpha bugs. It's still Space Channel 5, it still has the same controls and the same gameplay hook, but there's some definite weirdness going on here, some unused assets you'll never see in the final game, and a lot of other really interesting things to look at. And I know I've been saying a lot this year that 2024 is the year of Sega Saturn with all the new alphas, prototypes, and betas we've been getting, but with Space Channel 5 Alpha joining the party on Dreamcast, it's really starting to feel like the year of Sega, and I wish that they would announce a Dreamcast 2 for Christmas. That would probably be the cherry on top of the ice cream sundae, but honestly, of all things I expect, that's definitely not one of them. But getting something like Space Channel 5 is just absolutely impressive. I remember the first time I played this game, I fell in love with it back in the day, but I do not remember ooh la la walking off the space station into thin air. You'll see right here in the first level all the way through the rest of the game, there are going to be a lot of very janky, very buggy things, because an alpha release is basically just trying to stand the game up, get the gameplay elements in, and better understand what the game is actually trying to do. Ooh la la should not be on the right there, she should be on the left with an army of followers, but she is right in the middle as this guitarist just spins around her and clips through her model the entire time. It's basically just stacking up on itself in ways that the game was never intended to play. Now the good thing is the controls 100% work and the timing seems to be correct to the actual retail game, so you can play this from start to finish, you can see everything going on, and you can see all the different changes, like the heads-up display right here, totally different than you'd get in retail. But again, on the gameplay front, the nice thing is the hook is there, because an alpha is trying to get the overall look, style, and gameplay elements in line, but in a very rough shape. You do get full controls, and they are responsive enough for you to progress through the game, or in this instance today, I struggled a little bit with it. But honestly, I never saw ooh la la walk up a wall and then phase back into existence, coming completely different angle into the camera. It's so much fun to see though. I know I always make the joke, it's fun to know how the sausage gets made, but in this instance that's particularly true. Seeing such an early build of a game that is so synonymous with the Dreamcast is just fun. Now I will say in the very beginning, it can be hard to tell any bugs. This seems like it is set up to be the most playable from the first level, and while you can complete the entire game for the most part, it does get a lot buggier a lot later on. But you'll see here, this is the same introductory sequence that you're going to come to expect from Space Channel 5, but with different art and different things going on in it. And that's the great part. It's familiar enough for you to understand what the game is and to remember having played it, but it's different enough, buggy enough, and they have enough changes in here that it feels like discovering a long-lost version of Space Channel 5, because exactly that's what it is. This is version 0.60 and it's dated 1999 and November 8th to be specific, and that is definitely earlier than the retail release. Obviously, we were basically just into the Dreamcast life cycle in North America as 9999 had just passed. We're talking 59 days from the launch of the North American version of the Dreamcast, and this game continues to surprise you with all of the strange things it's going to do. None of the cutscenes are going to have any audio whatsoever. That must not have been done by this point in time, or it just wasn't laid up into the actual alpha prototype. But most of the gameplay hook is still here, but you'll see you basically go right into the battle with no sort of lead up whatsoever, and the boss has this absolute strange texture going on. This is not what it looked like in the original game whatsoever, and it gets even stranger from here. The bugs, the glitches, and just the overall alphaness of this are going to come through so quickly once you actually get further into the fight. But for the most part, it is still recognizable as Space Channel 5. It's still the same cadence of events for the most part as how you go through the game. The boss battle still seems to function the same, but at least by my memory, it's been a few years since I played Space Channel 5. This battle here seems to be much quicker and harder than I remember it to being, but again, it's been a couple years since I talked about the game. And you'll see here the boss is just going to continue to expand until his mouth basically swallows the entire screen, and you cannot see ooh la la whatsoever. It is so fun, it is so weird, it is so broken, but in all those fun preservation ways you come to know and expect. And if you go through the menu select, you can select the different levels in the beginning of the game, and if you go into that same boss and let it load up, For some reason, this time you're going to see that his graphics are not corrupted. It's very strange. There seems to be more than one version of multiple levels on this disc, so it seems like there's a corrupted version and a better version. But if you just start the game from level 1 and run to the boss, you're going to get those corrupted graphics, it seems, pretty much every single time. Now, some of the sound effects are also scratchy, and the music doesn't sound as good of quality, but it's still so much fun. Listen, and I'll be right back. For some reason the audio just sounds a little bit more compressed to my ears, but leave me a comment down below and tell me what you think. And the sound effects can be a little bit scratchy in-game, but in the actual menu they sound almost distorted. And speaking of the menu, it has a ton of different options and almost all of them are completely incomplete. You'll see some character portraits that just won't work, there's no text, and some options just don't do anything whatsoever. So it seems like a menu, but for the most part you're just going to be using the level select and starting a new game wherever you want to. But again, this is fun even if it's not done, and it is one of those things. I always love being able to play a new prototype, especially for a game that I know and love, and that's why on the channel, when I do get games that nobody else has, I definitely release them for everyone to enjoy, and Laurent and Sega Dreamcast Info continue to do this as well, and it's so much fun to see other people out there doing that exact same thing, just releasing things for the fun of it. Now, I'm not sure who Ooh La La is saluting here. She just kind of turns into the screen, and you'll see here in just a moment she's going to turn around and just continue that animation, and then we're going to jump right back into gameplay. It's stilted, it's weird, the cadence is off, but it's a good thing that all of the control inputs cadence are correct, because it means you can enjoy and still play the game while also seeing all the weirdness going on. And you'll see here in just a moment as Ooh La La turns, all of the camera cycles and speeds are completely off. The transitions have her model in the wrong spot, and in a lot of these scenes you have to do a certain command at the end, and here you're going to see that somehow I managed to succeed through it even though I have no on-screen prompts and I can't see the models whatsoever. I'm just doing it from my ear because I have no idea what I'm shooting at. It hasn't loaded up yet, but as the elevator starts to open in front of her, you'll see one of the aliens behind there, and it's just one of those things. It feels like this game is barely functioning, struggling to stay together, yet you're still charmed by it, still amazed by it, and you still love all of its colorful nature, because even as an unfinished alpha, just to check out from a historical standpoint, this is still one of the prettiest and most unique and most vibey games the Dreamcast ever released, and that's why it's so much fun to be able to play a prototype like this. And it does seem like there's just more and more of this happening in 2024, and every time it happens I'll make a video about it because I know you guys love seeing all the new retro gaming news. Will you make a comment down below and tell me what one prototype on Dreamcast would you like to see more than any other? I'd assume a lot of people would have said Space Channel 5 had they known it was out there, but I'm sure there's some other popular picks that you can think about. But you'll see here, when these characters load in, they just do some very strange things, but for the most part Ooh La La's model and all of her animations are complete, so it seems like they basically got Ooh La La's design and model rigged up and the gameplay element built into the game, and then they started building the game around that. That's why you'll see some sequences, if you don't know that the character models are doing weird things at the start, seem to look like they are just running perfectly fine. It's only when I don't make a lot of cuts and basically show you where the game is having issues or problems is the when you realize just how early of a version this is. And honestly, it could easily be read as 8/11 and not November 8th in the dating scheme because it was made in Japan, but I'm really not sure exactly what it is. But honestly, this next scene here is hilarious. Ooh La La is going to get blown up and thrown off screen in what seems like an animatic, and if you're not familiar with that term, it's basically just an animated storyboard we had to do a lot in film school. She disappears, there is this command you have to put in, I somehow magically still pull it off, and I'm able to continue on with the game. But this is just such a fun prototype to play. It is so incredibly early. Obviously a lot of the video sequences in the back are done. This isn't one of those prototypes where it's basically just a character model in a completely temp screen, but it's basically one step ahead of that. Pretty much the entire game is here. There are some changes, there's new graphics, there's new heads-up displays, and there is a lot of bugginess, but that bugginess is so much of what's fun about exploring prototypes like this. You get to see the development process in real time of some of your favorite games, and every time someone releases something like this versus keeping it to themselves, I always love to celebrate it. But go play Space Channel 5, the .60 prototype, you're going to love it, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.